The final data reference we'll discuss in this course is the Stringbuilder data reference. This is brand new to AF 2.6, which is the AF component of PyServer 2014. So if you're watching this video and you check your AF version and it's older than 2.6, then you won't see this data reference available to you. Now with the Stringbuilder data reference, we can parse strings, which is pull out only a portion of the string that we want to use for our attribute and get rid of the rest. Or we can concatenate, where we take multiple strings and put them together to form one longer string. And you might be wondering why this would be useful, or why we added this as a feature to AF recently. And on its face, it's not quite that obvious, but let's look at a case here with our zone number. Now here, we just built an attribute with no data reference and typed our zone number in. And of course, that's no problem. We only have one zone, it's not a big deal. But let's say we had, a building with 50 zones, and we were going to have an element for each zone. We wouldn't have to go through and manually add in this zone number for every element. And we'll see later when we start templatizing things to easily create elements in mass, it'll be nice to have things like this automated. So the Stringbuilder data reference will give us a way to automatically go and just pull the 1 off this element name and substitute it in for our attribute. Also remember that this zone number attribute is kind of the input, if you will, for our area attribute, because it's a table lookup data reference. And so we're actually matching the value of this zone number attribute to the value of the zone in our table. And from there, we're returning the area from our table. So if we're able to go and get the zone number value filled in from the name of the element itself, then we can always ensure that our zone number matches our element name, and therefore our table lookup is going to be correct. So let's play around with the Stringbuilder data reference and see what it can do. So remember that here all of our HVAC tags have a 3-digit code, and the first digit of the code corresponds exactly to the zone number. So if we have the zone number as an attribute, then we can use that with a substitution parameter in order to input the zone number to build our final tag name here. And I can show you an example of that in our completed HVAC database. So here you can see like our vibration frequency tag is using 1 as the first digit, and of course that's the zone number as pointed out before. And if I jump into the library and I look at my blower template, I can see that the vibration frequency uses a substitution parameter to get the zone number directly from the zone number attribute. Now since we can't parse strings directly through substitution parameters in the template, we're able to use the Stringbuilder data reference as an intermediary to be able to get the zone number for this tag building within the template. So let's jump back to our database where we're building things now and see how we can configure one of these Stringbuilder data references. I'll start just by building a dummy attribute for us to play with to see what the Stringbuilder data reference can do. So again, just go anywhere in the right space and right click, pick new attribute, and we'll call this Stringbuilder. Of course, for the data reference, we'll want to select Stringbuilder. And then we'll click Settings to get to our GUI. So we can see there's an explanation up here of how this GUI works. Basically, where we see this blue space, we can add some text, and then we can use our new line button over here to keep adding new lines as we go down. So we can add text 1, text 2, text3, and then the data reference will take text1, add on text2, and add on text3 to make our final string. So we'll go ahead and hit that new line button. Again, we get our right pointing arrow here. It's going to take us to our little cheat sheets. And the first thing on the list is literals. This is just telling us that if we want to add our own text, we need to enclose it in double quotes. So I'll just use their sample. And you can see that there's a little value preview box down here. It'll show us what's going to be our attribute value based on the input that we've put in. So let's see what else we can do. I'll add another new line. And say I want a space between my pieces of text. I can just do a double quote and then a space and then another double quote. Let's add another new line, and I'll skip to the bottom here. You see we have our string functions. Now a lot of these will probably be familiar if you've done any kind of scripting or programming language. Also Excel has a lot of similar functions. So for example, we'll just take left. You can see that the two input parameters are the string that you're going to enter, and then the length, which is the number of characters we want to keep. So for example, I could go in here, and we'll put in OSIsoft, and a length parameter of 3, so that'll return the first 3 characters starting from the left and moving to the right. I click in here, we see our preview, and I get OSI, the first 3 letters of OSIsoft. So I'll just go in here and copy this space that I've created and create another new line. Just separate everything with spaces. And we'll see we can also add attribute values. So when I hover over attribute values, I get a list of all the attributes of our zone 1 element. So I look here, it's basically going to look in my zone 1 element and give me the list of attributes and return the attribute values. So let's just go for the area. Another way to add an attribute value is to specify the full path. So I'll go ahead and add a line here. Add my space first and another line, and then I'll go see my options. We have related attribute values. And here you can see it's basically showing me how to construct the path to an attribute in another part of the hierarchy. So if I had a full hierarchy of elements over here in the browser area, I could use the full path of those or move around the path using some of these different delimiters to get to other attribute values. Now, we'll talk about that more when we get to templates because it'll be more relevant there. I'll also point out that you do have the search option if you want to just go find an attribute directly. So I wanted to say return the temperature offset. You can do that, and it's going to fill in the path to that attribute for me. And let's just go ahead and hit OK and see what we got there. So you can see how it took the text, the one we did with left, and the 2 different attribute values that we pulled in different ways, and put them all together with those spaces that I added to produce this final string that's going to fill in our attribute. So one other thing I do want to point out is if you look over here at the configuration string, you can see that wherever we had a line break in the settings GUI, we now have a semicolon filled in. So if you didn't want to go through the settings GUI to construct your configuration string, you could come in here and just type something yourself and separate each line with a semicolon. So I could do space and then semicolon and then engineer. Of course, all strings need to be in double quotes. And I can just tack engineer onto the end of my attribute there. So the thing we were interested in doing for our HVAC example was getting this zone number instead of having it be filled in manually. We would like to have the Stringbuilder fill it in using this element name up here. So this will get to the last option in our Stringbuilder that we didn't get to before. So I'm going to start by converting my zone number to a Stringbuilder reference. I'll go into my settings and add a new line. And we'll go down to this one that says substitution parameters. And these will become really important when we start templatizing things. It'll allow us to automate such things as tag name building and being able to substitute values from other attributes. So here you'll see that every substitution parameter is surrounded by percentage marks, and then the text in between the percentage marks is some unique text that when the AF server sees these two delimiters setting that text off, it'll know how to handle that string and return the proper value. So the ones we're really interested in here, or the one we're really interested in, is %element%. Now what this is going to do is go find the element that owns the attribute for the Stringbuilder data reference, and then it's going to return the name of that element. Similarly, if we could also return the name of the attribute that's owning the data reference, and we can go up levels to a parent attribute. There's a lot of other ones here. We could get the element description, the name of the Pi system, we could get the current time. So there's a lot of options here, and I would encourage you as you start using substitution parameters more to dig into the Pi System Explorer user guide. It has a lot of good information on substitution parameters and has some really good examples in there on how to use them, how to move up and down hierarchy levels. And of course, we'll discuss some of that more as we get into templatization. So for now, I'm going to use the %element%, and you'll see that the value that gets returned is zone 1. Now, we just want the number off the end, so we're going to have to combine this substitution parameter with one of our string functions. So I'll go back in here, and we want to get the number off the end, so we want to start from the right side. So we'll use right. Go grab our substitution parameter again. Substitute in the %element%. And our length is 1, which is correct. So now if we look at our preview, the value returned is 1, which is what we want. It's the zone number. I'll go ahead and hit OK. And you'll see now my zone number gets filled in automatically. If I were to go and change the name of this element, say to zone 2, return to the attributes. Let me refresh real quick. You can see now my zone number is 2, and it's even gone and looked up the area for zone 2. So now we'll always have the correct area corresponding to the proper zone number. So I'm going to go back and change my element name back to the correct one. And I'll go ahead and check everything in. It's always good to do that whenever you complete something new. And I guess the last thing I'll do is get rid of this kind of dummy attribute we were using. I'll just right click on that Stringbuilder attribute and select delete. So now we have a Stringbuilder attribute that's going and grabbing the zone number off of the element name and displaying it for the zone. Oh, looks like it's still displaying the element. Let me refresh that. There we go. And again, check in all your work.